This is an electric skateboard, and today I'm going to show you using my Skydio 2 drone and my GoPro Max how you too can get into this hobby at an inexpensive starting rate. I am stoked with what I think is in this box. Keep in mind, I paid for this. This was not given to me by anyone. So I'm going to be completely honest with my thoughts if I can get the box open. Yes! My first electric skateboard. It's made by ePlay. Comes with a controller, skate key, power charging unit box, and like a little light to flash so if you ride at night. Alright, let's check this out a little closer. I've had this particular board for 2 summers now, so I'm pretty excited that I can actually not just give you an initial impressions, but I can tell you how this thing's held up with some serious abuse over the last 2 years. High-end boards like the Evolve or the late Boosted can range up to $2,000 to get into the hobby, where something like this ePlay starts at about $250 and goes up to $900, so it's a much more affordable option. This is an older model by ePlay, the M2S, with a standard size battery. ePlay claims it can go 9 to 11 miles on a single charge. But in real world use, riding through mountainous hills, someone my size, I've only been able to get about 7 miles, give or take, on one charge. After that, I either have to recharge the board or start pushing it like a regular skateboard. It's about a 6-mile ride to work, so I can take this to work, plug it in, and it's ready to go for me to ride it back home at the end of a workday. Not only are there other configurations on the ePlay website, but there are much newer models with much larger battery capacity. They even have one now that claims it can do anywhere from 27 to 34 miles on one charge. One of the nice things about these ePlay boards is they are a more affordable brand. For $250 to $500, you're sticking your little toe in and seeing how you like it before you go shell out even up to $900, which is still under half the cost of one of these high-end boards. Shipping on these is not cheap, so be prepared to add at least an extra $100 no matter which model you decide to get. The remote for the skateboard is pretty basic, pretty lightweight, and pretty easy to use. There are 4 modes on the remote that you can switch between: beginner, eco, expert, and pro. If you don't have any skateboard experience at all, I would recommend starting on the beginner mode. It has a nice easy start and is also a pretty slow mode, so you can get really used to the product and used to what you're doing if you've never done it before. The big difference between the pro mode and the expert mode is just that when you start, it has more torque on the low end. You can quickly look down at the remote to judge how much juice is left in your battery's charge. There's a small picture of a skateboard on there with 4 LEDs next to it, and each one of those represents a quarter of what is left in your battery. By just tapping the power button, it also cycles through those 4 modes I was talking about. And to turn the power on and off, you actually have to do a long depress of the power button. Right next to the power button is the reverse button. Yep, this board has reverse. If you're at a standstill, you can tap that button, switch it, and then doing the same motion on the slider, which is what makes you go on the top of the remote, you can then go backwards and then stop again and then tap it and go forwards once again. Another cool thing is if you lose connection between the remote and the board, or if your battery dies while you're out riding, the board's going to slowly come to a stop. It sort of just reverts into what it would be like if it was not an electric skateboard and just slows down like a regular skateboard. The cool thing about that is you still have brakes. So if you happen to be going downhill, you can use the brakes to make sure you don't get out of control. I've heard that some other boards out there actually, when it loses connection to the remote, automatically puts the brakes on, and when you're going 20 miles per hour, you really don't want the brakes to just be thrown on automatically without you knowing it's coming. That could end up causing some serious injuries. There are 2 ways to get the board itself started. There's a power button underneath the bottom, or you can just sort of roll it a little bit and it will automatically turn the power on, and then you can just keep rolling away. Keep in mind, you do have to manually turn on the remote's power. Now the grip tape that comes on the board has a couple of different options right from factory, but you could easily peel it off and put on something custom so that you can make the board more your own. The motors on this particular board are what we call hub motors. They're motors that are contained in the back 2 wheels. This is different than a lot of other boards that use belt-driven systems. Belt drive can actually have more of a low-end start compared to these hubs, but so far I haven't had any kinds of problems with the launch speed or start of these hub motors. Plus, if you do run out of juice and you have to manually push this board yourself, these are so much easier and have a lot less resistance than pushing a board that has a belt drive motor. This particular model I have is supposed to handle inclines up to 30% or a 30% grade. And when I first got it, it did just fine on most of those. However, now a couple of seasons later, it is struggling on some of the steeper hills. Now, I think that's also to do with the fact that I got the smaller battery, and over time that battery power declines a little bit. The board itself weighs about 16 pounds, and so the handle that's built into it actually comes in pretty darn handy. Pun intended. This particular board is rated to hold up to 280 pounds. Newer boards in their lineup are rated to hold over 300 pounds. So don't use your weight as an excuse on why you haven't got into this hobby. It is a blast. The wheels on these electric boards are also much larger than a regular longboard or regular skateboard, and this can really help you tackle cracks in the road as well as minor pebbles and even a little bit of off-roading. ePlay is now offering a true off-road board with off-road type wheels, larger wheels, still using the hub motors, and I hope, fingers crossed, that after they see this video, they consider sending me one so I can come out and really put it to the test in this gorgeous, beautiful area that I live. The flex in the deck is also very helpful in giving you a smoother, more fun ride. So one of the fun things about making these kind of videos is in between scenes, you're just skating. You're just having a good time taking in these views. I mean, look at these views. So the remote doesn't actually have a way to track how far you go and what your top speed is. And I made a little bit of a mistake by not bringing my phone with me. I had planned to track this as well as tell you what the top speed is. So I'm gonna have to come back and do this ride again and insert those numbers right there. So that's what the top speed was on this ride. And that was how many miles we went total round trip. Most of the ride from this point on is downhill. On the remote, it did show me that I dropped down between 1 and 2 LED lights, which means that I am down to a quarter of the battery, and it means I have no climbing power. However, this board does have regenerative charging. What that means is whenever you're putting the brakes on going downhill, it's actually charging the battery. I should, hopefully, be able to make it all the way back home, even though I got quite a ways to go. I live on the other side of that hill over there. Not the mountain peak, but that hill with the row of trees. When the board first arrived, I did find that I needed to tighten the trucks a bit because they were pretty loose. And when you're going speeds of 20 miles per hour or so, and you get the speed wobbles, well, that can really suck. Getting speed wobbles and getting tossed at that speed would hurt pretty bad and probably also break a few, well, bones in your body as well. So I'd recommend before hitting those top speeds, check your trucks out, get them adjusted to a point that works for you. The acceleration and the braking on this board is pretty smooth. I do think that the braking could be just a little bit smoother when you first engage it, though once engaged, it's pretty smooth and everything feels very intuitive. The biggest issue I have with this board is the fact that I didn't get the bigger battery, and that's on me. There are times, like today, that I wish I could just keep riding and riding, but I'm only getting, 6 to 7 miles out of one battery charge. So I do recommend to you, if you are getting one of these boards, get the biggest battery that you can afford, because you will never regret having more distance, but you will regret being able to go less distance. I would highly recommend these Yeeplay boards for someone just getting into the hobby. They really do seem to be a player against these bigger, more expensive boards that are out on the market. You're basically getting the same board for a third of the cost. I really hope this video helped you if you've been considering getting into this hobby. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and make sure you stay tuned for an upcoming video of how I made this video. So subscribe and click that little bell icon so you don't miss it. And remember, sharing is caring.